All right, if you're joining me for this explainer, you're probably deep in the trenches of an academic paper. You're staring at a blinking cursor, totally dreading the bibliography. We've all been there, right? Formatting poetry citations can feel like an absolute nightmare, a dizzying maze of commas, italics, and dates that just distracts you from the brilliant analysis you just wrote. But hey, don't sweat it. Today, we're going to totally demystify this whole process and turn what feels like a massive chore into a super straightforward, predictable formula.
Okay, let's dive into this. It's the ultimate question that brings literally every literature student to a screeching halt. How do you properly cite a single poem? I mean, it sounds simple, right? It's just a poem. But as you've probably figured out by now, academic referencing is all about hyper-precision. The reason this particular question causes so much of a headache is because a poem is rarely published in a vacuum. Pinning down its exact location so your reader can actually go find it requires a very specific set of data points. So consider your frustration totally validated. We're going to tackle this head-on and give you the exact tools to nail it every single time.
So here's our highly organized roadmap for this session. We're going to cover 1. Citing print collections, 2. Navigating online poetry, 3. The ancient exception, and 4. Your citation shortcut. We've got every medium covered here, from standard print all the way back to ancient texts.
All right, Section 1, Citing Print Collections. Let's break down that standard print formula. We really need to treat this citation exactly like following a recipe. The absolute foundational rule here is that a poem is almost always cited as a work within a collection. Why? Well, because physically speaking, a single poem rarely ever stands completely alone as a whole book. It's almost always bundled up in an anthology or a collected works edition. So your baseline rule is to always treat that individual poem as a smaller piece nestled inside a much bigger puzzle.
And this brilliantly illustrates the exact anatomy of that print citation. We're going to build it step by step in a really logical progression. First, you've got the poet. Second, the year of the edition you actually used. Note, that's not necessarily when the poem was first written. Third, the specific poem title. Fourth, the editor, assuming there is one. Fifth, the overarching collection or anthology title. Sixth, the specific edition. Seventh, the publisher. And finally, number 8, the page range. Just imagine you're zooming out, right? You start way close in with Walt Whitman in a specific poem, then you zoom out to the anthology it lives in, and finally all the way out to the publisher who printed the whole shebang.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the specific exception to that final rule about page ranges. You're probably wondering, wait, shouldn't I just cite the line numbers of the poem? Well, the answer is not always. You actually only use line numbers instead of page numbers if 2 very specific things are true at the exact same time. First, the edition you're using has to provide stable line numbering. And second, your specific academic discipline must explicitly require it. If you don't meet both of those conditions, just stick to the standard page numbers we just talked about.
Moving right along to Section 2, Navigating Online Poetry. Let's look at the choose-your-own-adventure side of things for digital sources.
Since the digital landscape is, totally different, our formula has to change a bit. You basically just swap out page numbers and physical book publishers for the website or digital publisher and the exact URL. Oh, and this is absolutely crucial. You have to provide your access date. The internet is super fluid. We've all hit a dead link before, right? So telling your reader exactly when you viewed that digital poem is vital for keeping your academic reference robust and reliable.
Let's move to and see how this builds. Section 3, The Ancient Exception.
Okay, so if the text you're analyzing is an ancient poem, think Homer's Odyssey. You literally take all those standard Harvard rules we just learned and throw them right out the window. Yep, they're gone. Instead, you have to use classical source conventions. These are highly specific traditional formatting rules used entirely in place of standard modern citations. Basically, this means you'll usually be citing the book and line numbers that were established centuries ago, rather than worrying about modern publishers. So for sure, if you're dealing with antiquity, stop what you're doing and pivot straight to classical conventions. And finally, Section 4, your citation shortcut. This is the ultimate cheat code you've been waiting for. So, the crucial point is, now that you actually understand the underlying anatomy of how these citations are built, you can use a shortcut. Step 1. You still got to do the initial legwork. You have to identify the exact edition or web page you read the text from. No tool can magically do that part for you. But once you have that info, step 2 is pure magic. You just plug that exact source material into the Harvard Reference Generator at harvardreferencegenerator.co.uk. Because you now know exactly what data the generator is asking for, you can generate the flawless Harvard poem reference instantly and just completely bypass all those tedious formatting headaches.
Which brings us to our final thought for today's explainer. Have you identified your exact edition yet? Because that is your very next step. Go look at your sources. Figure out if they're print, digital, or ancient. Pinpoint the exact version you read, and then put your new knowledge and that amazing generator shortcut to work on your bibliography. Thanks so much for joining me and learning all this today. Now get back to that paper, format with total confidence, and let your incredible analysis shine.